Karen Dalton walked to the edge of a stage somewhere in Europe in 1971, with thousands of fans waiting. But they weren't waiting for her. They were there for Santana. Her band started playing. They vamped through the introduction once, then again, glancing nervously toward the wings. She never came out. She stayed behind a door in a concrete corridor, while the crowd grew restless, and her musicians slowly fell apart in front of them. She never explained why. She didn't need to. Karen Dalton had been fighting a private war with the world for years, and the world hadn't even realized there was a fight. Born Jean Karen Carricker on July 19, 1937, in Bonham, Texas, she was raised in Enid, Oklahoma, a flat, wind-battered town where grain elevators broke the horizon and Southern Baptist households kept things strict. Her father was a welder, her mother was a nurse. But the house had books in it, and it had music. Her grandmother held gatherings where instruments were passed around, and nobody performed for anybody. People just played. That's where Karen's relationship with music began, not in a classroom or a record store, but in a kitchen. By 8, she was teaching herself to read classical notation. By 14, she was painting in oils. She learned the 12-string guitar and the long-neck banjo entirely on her own, with no lessons and no permission. Peter Stampfel of the Holy Modal Rounders, who later played in her band, captured it perfectly. She was the only folk singer he ever met with a genuinely authentic folk background. Everyone else came to the old songs through record collections. Karen came through a family sing-along. Her personal life moved fast and left marks. She married young, had 2 children from 2 relationships, and found herself at 21 with 2 divorces, 2 children she wasn't raising, and a repertoire of songs nobody thought could be a career. She drove east to New York in 1960, arrived in Greenwich Village, and stopped rooms cold. The village in those years was electric, hundreds of coffee houses packed into a few blocks, the rent survivable, the talent ferocious. A photograph from February 1961 shows a 19-year-old Bob Dylan on one side, Fred Neil on the other, and Karen Dalton in the center, eyes shut, mouth open. Dylan would later write in his memoir that she was his favorite singer in that whole scene, funky, lanky, and sultry, with a voice like Billie Holiday and a guitar touch like Jimmy Reed. Richie Havens called her the undisputed queen of the Greenwich Village folk scene. She recorded 2 albums. The first, released in 1969, was quietly extraordinary, spare, strange, and emotionally devastating. Capitol pressed a few thousand copies, did nothing with it, and dropped her. The second came in 1971, on a small label, with a fuller sound and real promotional push. It sold nothing. The Santana tour broke her faith in the music industry entirely. According to people who knew her, something in her just gave way after that. The decades that followed were quieter and lonelier than legend tends to suggest. She kept playing in living rooms. She kept moving. In the mid-1980s, she was diagnosed with HIV, most likely from a shared needle, and she lived with it for close to a decade in a house upstate, far from the stages that had never really wanted her anyway. She died on March 19, 1993, at 55. Peter Walker, a friend of 30 years, found her. She had already signed her copyrights over to him and told him plainly what she thought about the legacy she was leaving behind. "It won't make any difference to me, Peter. I won't be here." She was right, of course, and completely wrong. Her recordings now stream in numbers that would have seemed impossible in her lifetime. Nick Cave, Adele, Lucinda Williams, and Angel Olsen have all named her as essential. The woman who couldn't sell a record has become quietly indispensable. If her story moved you, hit like and subscribe. There are more voices like hers, still waiting to be heard.